The future of community building is bright, I think. Uh, Today, we're going to be talking all about building a career as a community professional, what the future of work looks like, what we see as some macro trends. And we're going to be greeting my guest, Matt Jenson from 33 Crickets, to talk all about that and more. So stay tuned. We're going to jump right in. Thanks everybody for joining. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you may happen to be. This is Talk About Your Community. My name is Todd Nilsson with Clocktower Advisors. And on this show, we talk about all manner of technologies and operational issues related to building thriving online communities and the offline communities that are connected to them as well. This is a passion project for me. I really love talking about this topic and have been building communities formally since 2013, informally since a lot longer before that in the gaming world. And I'm really glad you're here today. This is an interactive show. So if you're out there in the chat, please drop in, say hello, where you're from. Would love to hear from you. If you've got questions during the stream, we'll definitely be watching them, both Matt and I, and going from there. If you saw a minor glitch at the beginning of the show, that's because I am flying without my chief engineer today, Kalisa Mikkel, who is normally managing things, but she's dealing with a little family issue, and hopefully everything will be okay, and she'll be back on here pretty soon for our future shows. But in the meantime, we're going to jump right into things. Before I bring my guest on for today, I just wanted to say that we've got another great show coming up on August the 11th, the next Talk About Your Community. It's going to be about embracing the community everywhere evolution. And we're going to have my dear friend and colleague, Jamie Langskoff from Chaotic Good Consulting on the show. And she is absolutely amazing. If you haven't run into her before, she comes from SAP SuccessFactors and MongoDB, and just has broad and deep experience in community building and the operational side of things, and such an incredible business mind. Looking forward to having her on the show and gaining her insights and goodness about this new idea that the community platform is not just the only place where community lives. It's actually probably a number of platforms, and community building is something that is an essential activity everywhere in your enterprise. So with that being said, I want to bring on to the stream here my friend Matt, and adding him in to the show. Matt, welcome to the show. Great to see you, man.
Good morning. Good morning. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Love it. Your fully operational coffee mug.
Fully operational this morning. Yes. That's what the Death Star helps me go and destroy the norms, I guess.
Amazing. I love it. I love it. So Matt, you're an online community strategist running a company called 33 Crickets. But you come from an incredible background in community building. Your resume includes companies like Linden Labs and Microsoft, Yammer, Lyft, Upwork, and Fiverr. Like you're the man. You're like what an incredible array of experience. I always start these shows by asking a little bit about your origin story. Can you talk a little bit about how the path has led you to the world of community over the years?
Absolutely. And it feels like it's been a long path with a lot of different bus stops along the way. But I guess over 15 plus years ago, I was working in hospitality. I actually was really focused on the experience when you come to like checking into a hotel. I was running front desk operations for Marriott in Hawaii and in San Francisco, and just understanding the ideas behind, when somebody comes to check into a hotel, you want to give them that experience. You want to have a good experience. Even if it's a business hotel, you want to make sure it's seamless, there's nothing wrong, and they can it becomes part of the overall experience of the stay. So from that, I kind of got over hospitality and was looking for something else. Was really into visual effects, 3D animation, gaming, all of those things. And luckily, I was able to get hooked up with a gig at Linden Lab. And for those who don't know, Linden Lab created Second Life.
This is for all the youngins out there. Yeah,
for all the ones. This is the metaverse before it was the metaverse. Yeah. And London Lab's still around, and you can jump in your virtual environment and kind of create your own second life. But being there and understanding the virtual relationships really weren't that much different than in-person relationships when, trying to create a community of like-minded individuals in a space. Kind of all those building blocks are universal across any industry. So kind of started there and got my beak wet, I guess, with community building and online digital engagement. So from there, found myself going to on live for a little while and helped launch the streaming service. That was a great experience. Unfortunately, did not stick around for very long. And then found my way to those other companies, Yammer, which was acquired by Microsoft. So found myself doing that. Jumped over to this little startup called Lyft for a half a year, 6 months. Actually, it was closer to like 9 months. And then kind of wandered my way into this idea of freelancing and gig economy, and Lyft was kind of on the forefront of that also. Whereas you have freelancers, you have individuals who are driving cars and trying to make a living or a side hustle that way, but the relationship with the company and the driver was a little different than say an Upwork or a Fiverr, which I found myself over the last 10 years working with those last two companies, realizing that somebody moving into freelancing or consulting really is pushing all their chips in and leaving that the security of a salary, really, and really chasing the passion that they have for whatever craft it is. And with Fiverr, it was like, are you a graphic designer? Are you a voiceover artist? Any one of those fields, you could find work. You could be connected through the marketplace with somebody looking to hire you, and being able to create communities for those individuals. And over the years at Fiverr, it kind of changed into the resource community. So being able to build resources and offer educational classes and connections, really, through the digital platforms was kind of where it ended up. And I think that was the natural evolution of what the community could be. So that was the long story of where I come from and what I've been doing. So yeah.
No, it's amazing. And, well, and
Mhm.
none of us end up here as a planned destination, but I think all of us that work in the community professional space recognize that it's a path that we come here because of something in our personalities and the way that we approach work, and we like that collaborative, group building kind of mentality, that brings people together and helps them to make better choices and have more fulfilling professional and personal lives, and make a difference in the world.
Even
And
validating the choices that they are making and saying that, yeah, you are on the right path. This is the path and just being able to reassure. I mean, when you're creating these peer networks, a lot of times as a freelancer, as somebody looking for work, you're on an island. You don't have somebody to bounce stuff off of, like an office. Like, you can't do that. So again, having that peer network of connecting people with somebody who's gone through it. I haven't got my first gig yet. Can somebody take a look at my profile? Is my portfolio good enough? Like, having those little things and having people say, yeah, you're on the right, keep on keeping on. Like, that's a powerful thing. It's a huge thing.
yeah, no, it totally is. So Matt, I think like one of the things that just stands out about your background, and I know it's on your headline for your profile, is this idea of the future of work. And as a talent professional for many years, I worked as a tech recruiter before I came into the community space. This is something that's on my mind always, like how people manage their careers, how they kind of move forward, what does the future of work look like. You've been in a unique position at the front of a couple of companies that looked at work in a substantially different way. Forgive the term, the gig economy emergence.
Yeah.
Through through both of the companies, Upwork and Fiverr. They were certainly leaders in that space, and still are. What attracts you to that as a topic, and what do you see at a macro level? I think we want to bring it down to the community level and think
Sure.
about that a little bit. But what do you see is sort of happening in the workplace? Because I like from my perspective, I see there's societal, economic, and technological reasons that we're living through all this disruption right now, and the changes are coming fast because the technology is moving fast, and because the technology is moving fast, the economies and the social changes are moving fast. So like I see these forces coming to bear as well as others that I'm sure I'm glossing over, a lot, on how people think about work going ahead. What have you seen?
It's a huge question to unpack. So we can definitely chisel away a little bit at it. You're absolutely right in that the conceptual ideas of how people do work have dramatically changed over the last 10 or 15 years, and partially because of technology, the ability to have connections like this and have a video camera and be able to do real-time communications via Slack or Yammer or something. And then you have societal changes that over the last 5 years, 4 years, I don't, the COVID era just it kind of is a blur at this point,
Yeah.
forcing people to go and do the work from their home. So you have this, I don't want to say this perfect storm. And to tell you the truth, like I was really hoping that the work from home push would have taken a little bit longer to diminish out, but there was a definitely concerted push to get people back to the office as fast as possible. That said, the the accessibility, I think, absolutely helps with individuals with accessibility in that when you're offering a job that you don't have to go to an office for, it frees up somebody who doesn't necessarily have that free time. Think of, the single mother who lives in Phoenix who's really great at graphic design, but can't take that extra hour to drive down to Tucson
Mhm.
to go to an office and do the work when she can do the work exactly the same at home because it's a digital deliverable that she does for the company that she works for. That gives her time to go pick up her kids and be able to be more present in her personal life. So that I think is a huge push. And again, adding accessibility to those who necessarily wouldn't be able to do those jobs. And here's the thing, like when you open up your business and you open up your mind to being able to find the right person for the right job, that is huge for a company because you're not pigeonholing yourself into this idea of like they have to be in the Bay Area, they have to be in the Denver
Mhm.
area, they have to be in Seattle. They could be in Sydney, they could be in Mumbai, they could be literally anywhere in the world and still get you the project-based work that you need to do. And time zones then become a different. But that's again unpacking the larger
Yeah.
ideas.
Yeah. Well, and if I could interject on that, like, and those organizations that are still operating out of that old model of you must be based in Mumbai or you must be based in Denver, for those roles, they're putting themselves at a strategic disadvantage for not being open to these new work opportunities or workplaces, because the person you just talked about who's a stay-at-home mom or is in a situation where they would have otherwise been unemployed or underemployed now has a chance.
Or working in a field that
Yeah.
they don't like, they don't feel themselves being as productive in because it's just a job and they don't have the passion for that job. They're just doing it because they have to.
Yeah.
And that's yeah.
So the diversity of opportunities, the geographical breakdown of employment, these are major trends, that are
Huge.
happening out there. I'm curious, any of you who've tuned in on the stream, would love to hear some things that you've observed as well. We're actually not seeing comments in StreamYard here for some reason. That's broken down from LinkedIn, but I'm kind of looking out here. Quick shout out to Akash and Carolyn for tuning in and saying hello. Carolyn was suggesting remote work and freelance work is super empowering to employees, which is something we've learned a lot of big companies don't like. That's kind of an interesting
It
point.
depends, and that goes to a company culture conversation also, where as the lead as a leader in your company, you have the responsibility to set the culture, set the way you want your company to run. Whether you're CEO, whether you're on board, whatever. And you have these conversations with founders of like, okay, are you going to create an office space? Well, yes, that's cool. You're going to pigeonhole, like, you're going to have people in that area who you need to come to the office. And that does lend itself to a certain level of collaboration that you can't necessarily get. There was absolutely times working at Linden Lab or something where I'd walk by, I'd see something, somebody doing something or whatever, and then you'd start getting this conversation and it would lead to something else. So you do lose a little bit of that like free radical idea bouncing off things when you do get away from the office. But and as a founder, you kind of have to weigh the pros and cons of like, is what we're doing strong enough to kind of push through with some of these workers in a remote setting versus a in-person setting. So
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So a quick shout out to Lori Goldman, another friend of the show, who's on the stream here today. Great to see you as well, Matt. So I have a dim memory. I didn't research this before the show of the whole idea of the gig economy as being something that arose out of Hollywood, maybe that when people would be on a movie or a show or something like that, that they would get gigs to go to different places, and that was sort of like where that trend emerged from. I don't know if that's accurate, but I'm sort of wondering, is that the direction we're all going? Is that the direction where community professionals are going to be going, more and more? Or do you kind of think it's changed as much as it's going to change at this point? I'm kind of curious of your take.
I think that the sky's the limit for the way companies and individuals like interact, for that matter. And I think this goes back to the technology point when you're starting to get Apple headsets and you're going to start getting different ways to interact with the technology, which is basically just a conduit to allow you to connect to someone else or something else to be able to do the work. I think the idea of the gig kind of, I think from an actor's perspective and a Hollywood perspective, that is kind of where it's cemented. But you can go back and look, people were doing gigs back forever and being able to offer their services for whether, accounting services during tax season. That's a gig. It's not like, I think a lot of people not necessarily have a full-time accountant on your personal staff, but you go and you have somebody do your taxes for you, or you have somebody, come and install a new kitchen sink or something. Like this is actually a great segue for me, because you see kind of trends in I really don't like this, but the labor side of tech of work starting to kind of adapt these ideas and these ways, these processes of working, where think about the idea of the graphic designer. They know graphic design. They can deliver great logos. They can deliver great web page design. They can do all these things, and it's all done digitally. Well, what happens when you need to do in-person things? And you started to see, Angie's List and TaskRabbit, all of these other gig economy work. I always gig economy because it's so broad and it can be literally mean anything. Just like the word community, you could say community to someone and they're like, okay, what type of community? What do you need? Like at that point, you need to start drilling down. But the idea that the labor side or the in-person deliverable side of gigs and jobs are starting to adapt these technologies, where the person who went to trade school, is part of the electricians union, can do phenomenal electric work, updating this, changing that, building out that. If you can find a way or a marketplace to help get them jobs, they don't have to worry about marketing their own business. They don't have to worry about all of the paperwork that goes into all of it. You can just provide them with the needs and the necessities to be able to do the work. And I think that is a huge trend to kind of broaden the scope of how everybody is thinking, and it just kind of one extra step to building out this holistic idea.
Yeah, that's great. Quick shout out to Laura Zug and to Ilker, who are on the call here as well.
18.
Nice to see so many friends on the stream here today. Carolyn notes that gigs are ancient history. Cottage industry and seasonal agricultural labor is gig economy, and that's prehistoric. She says, "Ask me about the ancient textile processing industries." Wow,
Okay.
that's a
It's
very
yeah.
unique area to
Note, put
speak.
that
So,
note for the yeah. I'm curious. I'm very curious. I love to hear about stuff like that.
but I think about too. Like
What?
uh, I'm an old buff of biography of Harry Houdini, and like
Okay.
Houdini in the 1920s was doing gigs, like going around doing performances, but he would take all kinds of different odd jobs, to do things. Like we think of him now as sort of like this great big headliner act, but
Master
before he was doing
magician.
that,
Yeah.
he was doing card tricks and handcuff escapes and stuff like that. So
Making balloon animals on the side.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, so what about you? Like, I'll put the question back and to you. You've been doing this for a long time. What trends do you see when you have conversations with new clients or even established clients coming in and saying like, are you changing the way they think about how community works with the company? Are you seeing different trends in that respect?
I'll say yes, and of course, like it's you have to take this with a grain of salt. It's the hill that I'm standing on, and happen to be have a perspective on at the moment. But from some of the customers that I've worked with, I see many of them being open to the idea of maybe having a contractor that's running the community. So community management as a service, so outsourcing that to a freelancer or to an agency organization that they're covering it that way. I think maybe a little more broadly sharing the responsibilities for being in the community, like across different domains within the organization, like customer service or product management. They're a little bit more involved with some of
Yeah.
that. But I think like from the freelancer perspective, certainly I see there seems to be a little more flexibility about like the community manager definitely, and especially since the pandemic, doesn't need to be living in the office. That it's very conducive to being a virtual, kind of job, and has been, for a long time. But I think even more so now, it's almost as a matter of course. It seems like you don't need to be in the office, doing this kind of job. So for me, that's kind of a post-pandemic trend that I see. You're going to
I
say
see
something.
that.
Sorry. Yeah.
No. I think you're absolutely right. I think one of the things that I found is that being able to find somebody to help, like from a freelancer perspective or from a contract perspective, with the community. I think certain community deliverables work really well with that kind of thing. And for me, I always
Mhm.
said it was like an if this then that kind
Yep.
of thing, where if you can lay out the strategy, you can lay out the ideas of what you want to get across, the feeling, the tone, the moderation, you can absolutely hire a freelancer or somebody to come in to execute those, to moderate, to help you with that. I think where you start to get a little sticky is when you need subject matter experts, or you need somebody to kind of be present in leading a community, and you want like and for me, I always leaned on the volunteers or the people in the community. Like my one of my philosophies has always been, this community isn't for me. I'm designing it for you, and finding the champions and finding the advocates inside of the community and elevating them to help lead those discussions, to help drive what topics are talked about, because they're going to know a lot better than you what they need. And despite you can have only so many one-on-one conversations with community members, and once you get to 10, 15, 20, 100,000 people,
Hmm.
you need
Hmm.
to rely on your little snowflakes of ideas and whatnot, and volunteers. So I think that's a really good hybrid model when you're looking at community strategy, to say, yeah, you can hire freelancers. Here's very specific sets of instructions on what we need. Obviously there's a little bit of back and forth about that, and then finding your champions and finding your volunteers in the community.
Yeah, no, I love that, and I'm bought into that idea very deeply. As you know, so Ilker, a consul, my excellent friend who's on the stream today, he and I have a joint venture that we're doing called Talent Led, and that's specifically about engaging an organization's talent through community spaces. And from the acquisition point to when they're within the organization, to when they've left the organization, but you want to keep them engaged as an alumnus of the space, and providing those safe spaces for them that are still connected to the brand or the organization, and being open to different kinds of employment arrangements, because that's so important. I recall I worked for an IT services firm in Chicago for a number of years. I always call it that I did 2 tours of duty with them. And the first time I left, I think I freaked out the operations manager a little bit when I left, because I didn't come in and say, like, I'm giving my notice, I'm leaving.
Sure.
I came in and said, I'd like to change the terms of my employment with you. And I meant it very literally. Like, I want you to imagine a different way of working with me, because I don't need to be a full-time employee anymore with you, but I still like what you do and I want to be involved with what you do. And I think, like, the world is kind of catching up with that a little bit. And I appreciate organizations that are thinking a little bit more expansively about talent in that way.
I agree, and I think that there's a lot of closed-mindedness when it comes to how you interact with a community. And looking through my LinkedIn feed every day, there's a new person. Hey, I'm looking for work. I'm looking for this. My company closed down a community group. This and that. It's interesting. Yeah, the ideas of rethinking how you interact with a community manager or strategist or somebody, I think, are lost on a lot of people, because they're locked in old ways. They're brand marketers, or they're acquisition only type of mindsets, and the ideas of retention and being able to utilize and leverage the community for certain things, I think, is lost. And you could scream many times and say and put together as many decks as you want, but if it's falling on deaf ears, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, that's not necessarily a great phrase anymore to say.
Yes, I understand. So the chat here is bubbling along, and I've been trying to keep an eye on it.
I can't access it.
Yeah. So I mean, I think Laura was pointing out the idea of what a difference the gig economy or the remote work has allowed for stay-at-home moms who want to return to the workplace and who can't be away from home 9 to 5. Great point. That's traditionally a group that would not be able to be doing meaningful work, but now they've got those opportunities to really embrace.
And I think for that also, like, being able to continue to show work experience is a huge thing. Because I know when my wife, we were lucky enough when we had our kid, she was able to continue to work and whatever else. But a lot of times you're either not working and you have this gap in your resume, and it's a real thing. It's absolutely a real thing. So being able to kind of still have that and show that, even to someone who's not necessarily understanding or that open to the idea, it's a thing.
So let me switch gears slightly here and kind of lay out a scenario. So if you are a community professional who's been in a full-time role for a while, or you've suddenly found yourself out of a role, and you're thinking about sort of this new world of work that's out there that is not necessarily full-time benefits positions, big company employing you and giving you all your benefits, but maybe there are freelance opportunities available. Maybe there are part-time opportunities available. From your experiences, kind of seeing conversations on Fiverr and Upwork, and how people in other industries have made that transition and positioned themselves, do you have any thoughts or advice about things that they could be doing to change mindset and approach to the marketplace around work?
Absolutely. And this obviously resonates really strongly with me. I was with Fiverr for 6.5 years up until February of this year. And going from 6.5 years with established company, established community, which I think was probably the hardest thing, because you knew all the ins and outs and all the people and all the personalities and whatever else of that community. Relaunching 33 Crickets Consulting, The biggest thing for me was just you're losing the net. You're losing the safety net of
Mhm.
being able to try things, to do things, and there is a little bit of pressure on making sure the arrow hits the bullseye when you do conversations, when you do a deliverable for a client, whether it's a strategy, whether it's a terms of service, whether sorry, a code of conduct for your community, whether whatever it is. And I think that that pressure sometimes pushes people to just kind of lock up and just be like, well, I can't. And it's that adage of, don't let perfection be the enemy of really good, I guess.
Right, right, right.
um, and some advice is just like, just do it, and just be confident that there was a company that, trusted you to create this for so long. You have those skills. And
Mhm.
if you found yourself in those conversations of freelancing, or find yourself on Upwork or something, it's something there inside that is pushing you to do this, and you just have to kind of do it. So I think that's probably the biggest advice for somebody who is leaving the industry, just found themselves left to be forced out of the industry, or from that safe space of. And here's the thing, there's so many opportunities out there to have
Mhm.
conversations, and it is a little bit of a grind. There's a lot of conversations that you will have that lead to absolutely nothing, but what you're doing is you're opening the mindset, and you're opening the ideas of, the conversations that I have a lot of times end up with, you've given me a lot to think about. Because a lot of times, community with the big C or a little c, like they hear this word, they know they need to have a community, and they don't really know where to start. So
Yep.
being able to lay it out, what are your business goals, what's the point, what are you trying to get out of this, what are your expectations of the community, and then what can they expect from you also. And you're
Mhm.
creating this relationship between your community and your customers and yourself. So that's one of the biggest things.
Right. What I hear a lot from people that are just stepping out is a bit of imposter syndrome. That they're concerned, like, well,
And
do I really have something to contribute?
yeah,
I've kind of been working in a company for all this time. I'm like, yes, of course you do. You
you
know more.
do, it's
You know
there.
more than you think you know uh,
and
uh,
it's
about this.
it's a lack of validation too, because, like,
Yeah.
again, it goes back to the, when you're freelancing, when you're doing it yourself, you don't have that peer support network of, that's a great idea, that's a great proposal, that's amazing, I saw you in that meeting, you crushed it. Like, you don't have that type of peer validation to show you, and kind of help you along that path. And I think that's actually segue into what the CCC is kind of creating, is this peer network of consultancy professionals who are looking to build, rebuild, connect, and just have that to get through imposter syndrome.
So for those of you who aren't familiar with what Matt just referred to, so both he and I are involved, as well as some of the people on the stream here today, with a new startup called the Community Consultants Collective, which is for anybody in the community space who's on the freelance path. Maybe you're a strategist like me or Matt. Maybe you want to do community management, but as an outside service,
Operations,
moderation, content creation.
feedback,
Yeah.
customer feedback, all of it.
Yeah. So a lot of different spaces. So this is what we wanted to do, is to create a safe space for people that are not on that corporate path, but are stepping out into the big scary world of being a consultant or being a freelance worker in our space, because it's not simple to do that. There's questions around, like, how do you set up your, do I need to set up an LLC or a business if you're in the US, or a limited corporation in the UK, or I'm sure there's different designations wherever you may happen to be in the world.
How do
Um,
I bill? How has it been?
how do I
Like,
build?
all the things.
How do I find customers? How do I, like, all these questions come up. How do I market myself? So I was sharing with you before we got on the stream, I'm involved with Led by Community, run by Francisco Paza, awesome guy. He's doing a neat exercise around personal branding. for the job search. And I've was invited to kind of, offer some of my thoughts around that from my years, of working in the recruiting space and looking at people's resumes and thinking about personal branding and how
Yeah.
all that works. So there's a host of questions and uncertainties and fears that happen, but I want to come back to and underscore one of the things that you said, which is just do it.
Just do it.
One of my personal mantras is I put a little more emphasis on it, to say, do the damn thing, that because if you don't do the damn thing, you're going to regret it later on.
You always think about the Wayne Gretzky quote of "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take."
Yes.
And just you got to take the shots. You got to take the shots. You got to take the shots, and a lot of them are going to go in, and some of them are not, and that's just the way it is.
For sure.
Yeah. I was told I had a thing and I lost it. So
that's okay.
It's gonna pop into my head in about 2 minutes.
Yeah, and just some really lovely contributions from people in the chat here. Carolyn was talking a little bit about resume gaps. I stopped sending resumes out the last time around when I was doing this work. I actually just I focused on networking, and as a recruiter who was involved on the back end of like getting resume submittals, and Adrian Spire from the Community Leaders Institute has talked about this recently too. When you put a job opening up there, especially for a community role, like 98% of the applications that you get are not really suited to what you're asking for. Yeah. It's too difficult to find. So and I think from the candidate experience of having to apply for those jobs, it's a terrible experience. I don't care what HR system it is. They all suck. And that's a personal opinion, but
no, I think you're right.
I've never run into a good one. They're terrible. And they don't make you feel valued. They make you feel like you've been chewed up by a machine. And then you never hear anything back, or you hear
it's a magical, here you go. And then that's it. And then
here's the black hole. Yeah. So like when people come to me and say they're in a job search, like I'll say, my usual opinion is have 5 meetings with people a day, just
put meetings on the calendar, have the talk, just get each chatted up. And that's one of the things. And actually, if you're starting out, and this is what the point that I actually remembered.
Before, I need to come back to it.
It was like, it's going to take 30 seconds. So I think one of the biggest things for me was coming from a corporate environment and coming from it. You need to be a generalist. You need to be able to do literally everything at any time, because that's what aligned with the company goals and whatnot. I think having those conversations and having many of them with different types of companies and different types of people help you define what services you want to offer and what services you feel comfortable offering and what services that you are good at offering. Because, as I said, like you could be a strategist and give the overall picture. You could be an operations dude and want to really kind of be in there. You could be a platform specialist and know every single platform and every single feature on every single platform and be able to consult that way. You could be a content creator and know everything about social media and blogs and want to do that. There's no wrong answer, but having those conversations allow you to define the specialist skills that you're able to offer as a consultant. Because a lot of times when you're having those conversations, they're not going to look for generalists. They don't want somebody to do everything. They want they have a specific need, specific goal, and that's what you're going to need to execute off of.
That's so profound, man. I 100% am with you on that. And you learn what your skills are by having those interactions with other people. You gain those next work opportunities by having conversations with other people and putting yourself out there. I feel like if you we need to take the lessons that we usually apply to community building and apply them to the job search and say, hey, you know what? This is about talking to people. It's not about the systems. It's not about the platforms. It's about having one-to-one conversations with other people.
It totally is. And I'm going to go off on a little tangent because this just happened to my wife. My wife works in HR, and she's overseeing the recruiting department also. There's this take home. If you've applied for a job and you've gone anywhere, you got to a certain level, you do a take home test. We want to check your skill. We want to do a take home test. She really feels that if you are asking a candidate to do a take home test, you need to sit down with them for 30 minutes, for a half hour, and an hour, and actually have a conversation with them. You can't get the test back and be like,
Right.
you can't ghost them. You can't ghost them at that point, because
Yeah.
you've asked them to do work,
Yeah.
and it's a respect thing. It's they're people, and a lot of times you forget that you're trying to make a connection for somebody to come work for your company. You're trying to make that. You're trying to find that good relationship, and if you don't have the decency to do that, I feel like then you're just a grinder, and maybe that's not the company you work for anyway. So
Yep.
there are companies, I think, doing it right out there, but it goes back to the processes of being able to do it right. I know, just people and connections, all those things. Oh,
Yeah, exactly. I'm so glad that I didn't say the usual thing that I say about human resources. As now that I know your wife is.
She knows. I think she knows all the things. She's been doing it long enough.
It's not so terrible. The usual thing that I say about human resources is that it exists to keep the company from being sued, basically. And to a large degree, it's an uncharitable, broad paintbrush.
Different type. Yeah, I think in a larger corporate sense, yeah, absolutely. There's definitely dot the I's, cross the T's, don't send this email.
Part of that is colored by my experiences as a third-party recruiter for many, many years, trying to work with organizations to get the right talent in the door, and just finding roadblocks, with a lot of HR organizations. I'd like to say that world has changed. I don't know how much it's changed. And as you said, like, your mileage is going to vary based on the company. There are certainly
it's individual and company inside. There's just, and that's, again, bringing it back around, the corporate culture and the company culture that a CEO and your C-levels are setting down. Is it going to be remote? Are you going to be in person? Are you going to be, what type of, are you people first? Are you company first? Are you, all of these things really go into how you define the workers that you hire. And that's, kind of bringing it back in, are we hiring consultants? Can we even do that? Like, is that something that we as a company are doing, or is every single job going to be done by a full-time employee because we trust them more than some other random coming in to do the job for us? And it's the individual, it's the company, and there's a lot of good apples out there and there's a lot of bad apples out there. So
yeah. There's a comment out here. By the way, quick shout out. I love Laura Zug made a comment. A job search is just 1,000 conversations. I think that's pretty cool. I love that. That should be on a t-shirt somewhere. Jenny, I see you're on. Hi, good to see you. I think that's your next t-shirt logo.
I like it.
That's great. Neha Agarwal said, so agree with you, Matt. I recently had an interesting experience with a well-known community platform where they asked me to send 5 videos full of ideas as a screening process, followed by interviews. They shortlisted me and scheduled an interview. 10 minutes before the interview, they wrote me, they decided not to interview me as they had other candidates in the pipeline, and they'll come back to me if nothing worked out. Man, that just torques me.
That's tough. That's you have to, if you're asking someone to do work, you have to validate and you have to have a conversation at minimum. Even if,
that's so wrong. Like in the consulting world, that's the equivalent of being asked to do work on spec up front. And I'm like, no, I have to charge you for that.
We have to, it's an hourly thing at that point. You just be like, I'm going to put 2 hours into this. This is the rate. You have to understand that. And I've, you can go to Reddit and read stories about like people that do these 2, 3, 4 hour take home tests and then get ghosted. And you're like, okay, cool. Do I just send you the bill for all of these ideas I just sent you? Like, you're basically a consultant at that point. And to be fair, I don't think companies look at those and say, those are great ideas, and like put them into the product pipeline and be able to grind that out. But it's still, you're asking somebody to do a set of deliverables for you in that space. And it's, you feel like you did nothing. You feel like you worked for nothing. And I certainly have been in that space of getting ghosted after those. So,
and it's a form of blackmail, really, because if that organization is asking for this work from you that they can just take and use, on their own. but you feel that you have to do it if you want to be
Yeah.
considered for that role. Um,
Yeah, I mean, if
it's
that's the
not right.
process and a candidate who's just says no to that, like that's it. Like you're just saying, okay, cool. Like we have other people who are looking for this full-time work, and to be fair, like I think that those types of ideas and those experiences, not necessarily they help fuel the idea that consultancy and running your own business and freelancing and just taking gigs ad hoc help. Like that's one thing you're basically doing that anyway when you're going through these tests. Who's to say that you can't deliver on somebody who wants the work, who gives you great specs to do the work in, and then will actually pay you for that work. um, that's, I think, one of the biggest things. And then it goes to like, how do you find those people? And
Yeah.
that's where marketplaces help. That's where Upwork and Fiverr come in. That's where, talking to having those conversations and networking with as many people as you can work. Yeah.
Well, and that's why, like, my usual, like, if somebody sits down with me and asks for job search advice, usually what I'll say is like, don't bother applying to jobs. Don't if you see an open job, maybe that company is one of 10 that you add on your target list that you're going to focus on for the next couple of weeks. And you try to find people in that organization, because we've got this wonderful tool called LinkedIn,
LinkedIn.
that
Who do I
lets
know
me
that works
find.
there? Yeah.
Yeah, and reach out to somebody who you think is maybe connected in your network, or you can get a warm introduction to somebody in that network, or worst case scenario, find somebody in sales because they want to talk to anybody. If they think you're a prospect, and you can get some insight on it. It's your opportunity to build some insight, about the organization. Maybe they can, tell you who's the right person to talk to internally. If you can get that conversation and you can get them bought in as a person that, thinks that you maybe have the right talents to do the job, then they're going to ask you at some point to put in your application through the job officially. And I think that's a superior way to go about the search. It is circumventing the system. Heck yes.
The
Um,
reference, absolutely.
and,
The
and
internal reference referral is I think it does hold weight. Also, I think sometimes, and this is, I guess throwing water on it.
yeah,
Sometimes you're looking for a very specific thing. I've been on the hiring side of it, and I'm like,
sure.
everything here is amazing. It looks great. You'd be perfect for it, but it's not a fit. And it's just
Yeah,
whether it just happens to be that you need to find the right fit for it. And you get rid of all that when you start doing consultancy, because it's not about personality. It's about the work that you're doing,
right, right.
and the deliverables that you can offer and set expectation for with that client.
Yeah, I'll paraphrase one of my favorite sci-fi shows of all time, Firefly, where Malcolm Reynolds says, "We do the job, we get paid, we keep flying."
Keep
That's
going.
how it works, right?
Hmm. Agreed.
um,
Shiny.
so, Matt, amazingly, we've almost filled an hour here of this, and it's been terrific conversations and contributions. See a couple more people, Jake and Adrian, Neha. Great to see you guys as well on here. Um, Matt, if somebody wants to engage further with you, obviously they can
Yeah,
connect with you here via
absolutely.
LinkedIn. Do you want to do a quick plug for 33 Crickets
Sure.
and what that's all about?
Yeah. So 33 Crickets. I was doing some consulting work before, and then got the gig at Fiverr and was doing that. So this gave me an opportunity to relaunch 33 Crickets. Um, Relaunch the website, 33crickets.com, and you can connect with me there if you'd like. I kind of do a little bit of everything, and that's the thing. I'm a generalist in that respect, but being able to have those conversations and really dive in is something that I've been able to do, and it's absolutely be able to have those conversations and help steer and drive any kind of strategy, even operations, from code of conducts and moderation things. I'm big into platform moderation and being able to understand what it takes to have a successful platform, because with the whole Twitter free, let everybody talk about everything kind of ideas, I feel like that's not a great space for being able to be educated and have these resource centers to help you be successful. It's great to vent, it's great to blow off steam, but I think a lot of times, having a, a, a moderated platform, I think is better for companies, and just having that expectation set, and that actually helps you weed out some bad apples. If you have, again, I've talked about the expectation of the person to you, and then you to the person, the company to the person.
Right.
Getting off topic here, but yes, it's 33crickets.com. You can find me on the Twitters or the X, I guess now it's called.
Whatever it is now, I don't know.
Whatever it's going to be called next week, you can find me there.
I pay less and less attention to them these days. So.
Same. But yeah, M Jensen on there, or 33 Crickets on there. You find me on the LinkedIn's. You can swing by my house. Yeah, if you're in California, swing by.
Awesome.
No, all the things. So I feel like I'm pretty accessible online.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
So great of you to join today, and thank you. A big thank you to all the people who joined in on the stream as well. We had a really great time with this, and if you're catching this on the replay, if you've got questions, if you are in a job search yourself, if you're looking for direction or advice or moral support, I'd say either hit up either Matt or myself.
Yeah.
We're happy to have it.
Happy to have one of the 1,000 conversations that you're going to have looking for the job.
Yeah, you can get a couple of them really easy.
Get a couple under the belt. Yeah.
Also, I'll mention, I saw, I can't remember who posted this last night, but somebody on LinkedIn said, hey, if you have a venue to kind of help somebody that's in a search right now, they're looking for the next thing. Can you do something, kind for them? Can you get them on your show or your podcast or whatever? I would love to do a show just to spotlight 5 or 6 people that are now in the freelance world, or they're now in a job search mode, and they want to talk about what they do, and they're looking for a public venue to do it in. I would love to have them on, talk about your community, give you guys a shout out, give you a little bit of a spotlight in our space. So if that's of interest to you, hit me up with a direct message. I'm very happy to do that. And Matt, I hope you're going to come back and talk to us some more about future of work topics. This is
anytime. As they evolve, I'm happy to come in and chat about anything and everything. I love this topic, and I'll talk for days about it.
Lori Goldman reminded me. She's the person that brought that up. Yeah, in fact, and I think we actually had a quick conversation about it. I just have very Swiss cheese memory sometimes with things. I do too much context switching. Yeah. But anyways,
too many platforms.
Exactly. So thank you everyone for tuning in today. Terrific conversation. Terrific to see everybody on the stream. And we will be back in 2 weeks on August the 11th with Jamie Langskov of Chaotic Good Consulting. I love that name. It's very Dungeons and Dragons. But she and I are going to be chatting a bit about embracing the community everywhere evolution. And we've been seeing this phrase coming up, I think, a lot lately. I think it's one of our trending topics in the community space this year. And what does it mean? Where communities live on multiple platforms. It's not just what you're calling your community platform. How does that play out? How does she think about it? Because I know she's just a brilliant strategist and thinker about these topics. So looking forward to having her on there, and hope to see you to tune back in a couple of weeks for that. So you can go ahead and sign up for it on the Clocktower Advisors site, or you can sign up on YouTube on the Clocktower Advisors channel to be notified when that next stream is coming up. In the meantime, Matt, I wish you a wonderful weekend. Happy trails.
You as well.
Good to see you again. And to all of you out there, take some time, unplug this weekend. You're no good to yourself or anybody else if you don't
get burned out.
Yeah. And with that, I will see you guys in 2 weeks. Take care. Bye, Matt.
Thanks, Todd. Cheers.